in the silent depths of the Arabian desert, beneath a sky overflowing with stars, a soul departed this world in a manner so profound that it caused the angels of the heavens to yearn with emotion. This was not the death of a king, nor a wealthy trader, nor a renowned warrior whose name echoed through the streets of Mecca and Medina. This was the passing of a man forgotten by society, avoided by people, and regarded by many as insignificant. Yet when he took his final breath on the battlefield, giving his life in defense of Islam, something extraordinary unfolded in the heavens above. Later, the Prophet Muhammad would speak words that shook the hearts of all who heard them, words that unveiled a hidden truth about this, overlooked, so one that even the closest companions had never imagined. From which country are you watching this video? If you love Islam, subscribe to this channel and join us as we journey through the most touching stories that strengthen faith and remind us of Allah's boundless mercy. In the blessed city of Medina, during the radiant era of early Islam, lived a young man whose life would become one of the most beautiful examples of how Allah judges his servants not by their worldly standing, but by the sincerity of their hearts. His name was Julaibib, may Allah be pleased with him. Though the world saw him as ordinary and unremarkable, Allah had prepared for him a position in paradise that would make even the greatest people of this world envious. The name Julaibib itself means the little one, a nickname that reflected his physical appearance. He was not gifted with height or strength, the qualities society often admired, but what society failed to see was the towering faith that lived within his modest body. Julaibib, may Allah be pleased with him, was what we might today call an outsider. He had no noble lineage to elevate his status, no wealth to earn admiration, and no striking appearance to draw attention as he walked through the streets of Medina. In a culture where tribal ties defined worth, where family names opened doors and appearances shaped value, Julaibib lived on the fringes. People avoided him in the marketplace. Families refused to consider him as a husband for their daughters. Even among the believers, he often felt the pain of being overlooked, of being forgotten. But there was one who never ignored him, one heart that saw beyond appearances and recognized the beauty of his soul. The messenger of Allah had a deep compassion for those society cast aside and a special mercy for those deemed worthless by others. When the Prophet looked at Julaibib, he did not see short stature or humble looks. He saw a heart overflowing with faith, a soul fully devoted to Allah and his messenger. The Prophet would seek out Julaibib, ask about his well-being, and include him in gatherings where others might have passed him by. The companions noticed this special care and attention, and it became a lesson they carried for the rest of their lives. They learned that in Islam, true value is not measured by wealth, lineage, or appearance, but by taqwa, by one's fear and love of Allah, the sincerity of worship, and the purity of intention. Through his treatment of Julaibib, the Prophet demonstrated the living meaning of the Quranic truth that the most honored in the sight of Allah are the most righteous. One day, the Prophet approached Julaibib with a question that would change both of their lives forever. The messenger of Allah asked him gently, "O Julaibib, would you like to get married?" The happiness that instantly illuminated Julaibib's face could not be hidden. Like any young man, he longed for a spouse, for companionship, for love, for the chance to build a family. Yet reality quickly grounded his joy. He knew his position in society all too well. Who would accept him? Which family would agree to such a proposal? With humility and painful honesty, he replied, "O Messenger of Allah, who would want to marry me? I have no noble lineage that people seek, no wealth to offer, and my appearance is not what families desire for their daughters." The ache in his words was unmistakable, but so was his acceptance. Julaibib had already made peace with what he believed to be his destiny. Perhaps marriage was not written for him, perhaps Allah had chosen a different path, but the Prophet saw what Julaibib could not. With a smile filled with mercy and reassurance, he said, "I will find you a wife, O Julaibib. Put your trust in Allah and trust in his messenger." Those words planted hope in Julaibib's heart along with wonder. How could this be possible? How could doors that had been shut his entire life suddenly open? The Prophet already had a family in mind, people of faith and understanding, hearts capable of seeing beyond appearances. He went to the home of a man from the Ansar, the noble helpers of Medina who had welcomed Islam with sincerity and generosity. When the messenger of Allah entered their home, he was received with the highest honor. They offered him their best seat, served him their finest food, and waited eagerly to hear the reason for his visit. After the greetings were exchanged, the Prophet spoke clearly, "I have come to ask for your daughter's hand in marriage." The household filled with excitement. What greater honor could there be than this? Their hearts leaped, already imagining the blessings and prestige of such a union. But then the Prophet continued, "I am asking for her hand in marriage to Julaibib." The joy vanished instantly. An uneasy silence settled over the room. The parents exchanged glances, their excitement turning first to confusion, then to quiet discomfort. They knew, like many others, they had never once imagined him as a husband for their daughter. Carefully choosing his words, the father said, "O Messenger of Allah, allow me to consult with my wife. We will give you our answer." When the Prophet departed, the couple sat together, burdened by the weight of the decision before them. They felt torn between two realities. How could they refuse a request from the messenger of Allah? Yet how could they give their daughter in marriage to a man they believed was unsuitable? They worried about her future, about what people would say, about the life she would live. Their thoughts were clouded by worldly measures of success, and they could not yet see the wisdom behind the Prophet's request at last. The father resolved to speak with his daughter to inform her of the proposal and hear her response. About the Prophet's request, hoping to hear her response, perhaps she would decline, and then they would not have to bear the weight of refusing the messenger of Allah themselves. When the father called his daughter and explained the situation, he expected hesitation, perhaps even immediate refusal. What this young woman was not shaped by worldly thinking. She had been raised upon Islam, nurtured by the teachings of the Prophet, and trained to see with the eyes of faith rather than the judgments of society. As her father finished speaking, she fell silent. A long pause followed as she reflected deeply on what this proposal truly meant. Then she spoke words that would echo through history as a timeless example of sincere belief. "My dear father," she said gently, "are you going to turn down a request from the messenger of Allah? Do you believe that the Prophet would choose something harmful for me? Do you think Allah and his messenger would guide me toward anything but what is best?" Her father tried to explain his concerns. He spoke of the hardships she might face, the social pressure, the whispers and judgment of people, but her heart was already settled. With unwavering conviction, she replied, "If the messenger of Allah believes that Julaibib is suitable for me, then I accept placing my full trust in Allah's wisdom. I would rather rely on the judgment of the Prophet than on the opinions of society." When this noble response reached the Prophet, his face shone with joy. He raised his hands in dua, asking Allah to bless her for her sincerity and deep faith. He said, "May Allah fill your life with goodness and blessings, for you have truly understood the essence of Islam." The marriage was arranged, and despite the doubts and quiet murmurs within the community, it took place with the blessings and prayers of the Prophet. What followed astonished everyone who had questioned the wisdom of this union. Julaibib and his wife found in one another a happiness and contentment that many never experience. She discovered that beneath his modest appearance was a man of noble character, profound faith, and gentle compassion. He treated her with respect and love, making her feel honored and cherished. Their home became illuminated with Islamic values filled with prayer, remembrance of Allah, patience, and mutual support. Though they possessed little of this world, they had an abundance of peace and joy. Julaibib's wife never complained about their simple life. She never expressed regret, never made her husband feel lacking because of his circumstances. Instead, she stood beside him, encouraging his worship, strengthening his resolve, and supporting his dedication to Islam. Together, they built a marriage rooted in love for Allah and his messenger. Julaibib himself began to shine even more brightly within the community. The acceptance and love he found in his marriage healed wounds he had carried silently for years. With renewed confidence and purpose, he devoted himself even more fully to Islam, always among the first to volunteer, eager to serve, ready to prepare for battle, and passionate about learning and sharing the faith. His wife's love did not distract him from Allah, it brought him closer, and the destiny Allah had written for this once forgotten man was far greater than anyone could have imagined. He had carried silently for years. That healing transformed him into an even stronger believer and a more devoted servant of Allah. Their marriage became a living lesson for the community that Allah's guidance often unfolds in ways human reasoning cannot grasp. People began to recognize that the Prophet's choice had not only been correct, but a source of immense blessing for both Julaibib and his wife. They learned to look beyond outward appearances and to place their trust in the wisdom of Allah and his messenger, even when that wisdom challenged deeply rooted cultural assumptions. But Allah had prepared for Julaibib a far greater test and an even greater honor. The call to jihad came, as it often did in those early days, when the young Muslim community faced constant threats from those who sought to extinguish Islam before its light could spread. A military expedition was announced, and the Prophet called upon the believers to volunteer. Julaibib stepped forward. Immediately, his heart burned with longing to serve Allah and defend the faith that had given his life meaning and dignity. Though his wife's heart ached at the thought of being separated from him, she encouraged him to go. She understood that this was not merely a military duty, but a sacred calling, an opportunity to earn the highest reward from Allah. She helped him prepare his weapons and provisions. She made dua for his safety and success, and she sent him off with words of love and encouragement. Neither of them knew that this would be their final farewell in this world. Yet perhaps Allah placed a special sweetness in those last moments they shared. The army marched out from Medina with Julaibib among its ranks, not as a commander, not as a leader, but as a humble soldier whose only goal was to please Allah. Yet there was a dignity in the way he carried himself, a sense of purpose that caught the attention of his fellow warriors. They began to notice qualities in him they had never seen before: courage, resolve, and strength, born not of stature or status, but of unwavering faith. When the battle began, Julaibib fought with the courage of a lion. He may not have been the tallest or the strongest, but his commitment was absolute and his belief unshakable. He plunged into the battlefield with such bravery that his companions watched in awe. This was no longer the overlooked young man of Medina, This was a true soldier of Islam, fighting with every breath for the sake of Allah. As the battle intensified, Julaibib found himself surrounded by enemy fighters. He did not retreat. He did not hesitate. He fought on with fierce determination, striking down one enemy after another, defending the Muslim ranks with his very life. His small frame moved with astonishing speed. His sword flashed beneath the sun as blow after blow fell in defense of Islam. The enemy collapsed around him, yet more came, drawn by the resistance of this single believer whose faith refused to yield at last. Overwhelmed by sheer numbers, Julaibib fell, but he did not fall alone. Around his body lay 7 enemy soldiers, 7 men who learned too late that strength is not measured by size, and that appearance means nothing when a warrior fights with faith in Allah. Julaibib had sold his life dearly in the defense of Islam. When the battle ended and the Muslims searched for their fallen, they found Julaibib's body surrounded by the slain, silent testimony to his courage and sacrifice. Yet the most beautiful part of his story was still to come when the Messenger of Allah, as he walked among the fallen Muslims honoring their sacrifice and praying for their souls, he suddenly stopped beside Julaibib's body. The expression on the Prophet's face was filled with such deep love and pride that it moved the companions to tears. The Messenger of Allah knelt beside his beloved companion and spoke words that would echo through Islamic history and touch the hearts of believers until the Day of Judgment. "This man is of me, and I am of him." His voice trembled with emotion. Then he said something even more astonishing, words that revealed the true rank of this humble soul whom society had once ignored. "The people of the heavens are missing him. The angels are longing for him." The companions stood in stunned silence, trying to comprehend the weight of what they had just heard. The people of heaven were missing Julaibib. The angels were yearning for his presence. The Prophet then gently lifted Julaibib's head and placed it upon his blessed knees, cradling him with the tenderness of a father holding his child. He raised his hands in dua, asking Allah to grant him the highest ranks of paradise, to fill his soul with eternal joy, and to reward him fully for his sacrifice and devotion. That sight, the Messenger of Allah holding Julaibib with such love and honor, etched a lesson into the hearts of the companions that they would never forget. It showed them the true values of Islam and the real measure of a person's worth. When the news of Julaibib's martyrdom and the Prophet's reaction reached Medina, his wife received it with the patience and faith of a true believer. Though her heart shattered at the loss of her husband, she found peace in knowing that he had died as a shahida, martyr in the path of Allah. She remembered the words of the Prophet about the heavens missing him, and while tears filled her eyes for her own loss, her heart overflowed with pride for his honor. The companions began to grasp a profound truth. Here was a man they had once overlooked, a man society had considered insignificant, yet Allah had chosen him for the highest rank. Allah had written for him a death that made the angels long for his company. They realized that Allah's judgment is nothing like human judgment. The scales of heaven weigh what the scales of this world cannot even perceive. The story spread throughout the Muslim community, carrying a lesson that would resonate for generations. People began to look at one another differently. They questioned their assumptions about status and worth. They came to understand that in Islam, the only thing that truly matters is the sincerity of faith and the purity of devotion to Allah. The quiet young man whom many had ignored became a teacher for the entire showing what it means to live for Allah and to die for him. Julaibib's wife became known throughout Medina as a woman honored by Allah for her wisdom and faith. Her decision to accept the Prophet's choice had brought her not only happiness in marriage, but the eternal honor of being the wife of a man whom heaven itself missed. Many proposals came to her from respected families who now recognized her true worth. Yet she chose to remain devoted to the memory of her martyred husband and dedicated her life to the service of Islam. The marriage of Julaibib became a timeless example used by scholars and teachers to remind young people that when choosing a spouse, faith and character outweigh wealth and appearance, and his wife's acceptance became a shining model of what it means to trust Allah and his messenger completely, even when that trust goes against everything the world values. In Allah's wisdom, even when human understanding falls short, their love story proved that true happiness does not come from social rank or material wealth, but from shared faith, mutual respect, and a marriage built upon Islamic values. Yet, perhaps the most powerful lesson from Julaibib's life is the true meaning of success. By worldly standards, he may have appeared insignificant, a man with no wealth, no fame, no respected lineage, but in the sight of Allah he was so beloved, so honored, that his absence caused the heavens themselves to feel incomplete. This teaches us that success in Islam is not measured by possessions or popularity, but by spiritual achievement, by closeness to Allah, sincerity in worship, and purity of intention. The Prophet's words about Julaibib being missed by heaven have been reflected upon by scholars throughout history. Some explained that his rank in paradise was so high that its inhabitants felt his absence. Others said his soul was so pure and beloved that even the angels longed for his presence. Still others believed that his sacrifice was so precious to Allah that all of creation honored his memory. Though scholars may differ in explanation, they all agree on one truth. Julaibib's story represents the ultimate triumph of faith over worldly values and spiritual worth over material status. His life shows that in Islam, every soul holds the potential for greatness. Any person, regardless of background, appearance, or social position, can reach the highest ranks if they dedicate themselves sincerely to Allah. His story proves that these worldly labels are temporary and meaningless when compared to the eternal value of a heart filled with faith. The companions who witnessed the Prophet's love for Julaibib and his honored martyrdom learned to treat every Muslim with deeper respect and humility. They realized they could never truly know who among them was most beloved to Allah, or who might be destined for the highest levels of paradise. This understanding made them gentler in their judgments, more compassionate in their dealings, and more mindful in how they viewed others. Years later, when those companions became leaders and teachers, they would often share Julaibib's story with their students and communities. They spoke of his humble life, his blessed marriage, his courageous sacrifice, and the extraordinary words the Prophet spoke about him. Through their teachings, Julaibib's legacy continued to inspire generations of believers. His story also became a source of comfort and hope for those who felt forgotten or marginalized. Muslims struggling with poverty, those judged for their appearance or background, and those who felt unseen or unimportant found reassurance in Julaibib's life. They learned that Allah looks at the heart, not circumstances, and that sincere faith can elevate even the most overlooked soul to the highest ranks. Islamic history records many similar examples, all following the pattern established by Julaibib's story. There was Bilal ibn Rabah, may Allah be pleased with him, a former slave chosen to become the first Muezzin of Islam. There was Salman al-Farsi, may Allah be pleased with him, a foreign seeker who became one of the Prophet's closest companions. There was Aman, may Allah be pleased with her, the servant woman whom the Prophet called my mother after my mother and promised paradise. All of these lives teach the same timeless lesson that Julaibib embodied, that in Islam, true honor lies not in who you are in the eyes of people, but in who you are in the sight of Allah. True worth comes from faith, character, and devotion to Allah, not from worldly status, wealth, or social standing. The lives of those like Julaibib and his wife remind us that Allah's mercy and love extend especially to those whom the world might overlook, and that His justice ensures every sincere soul receives honor and recognition, if not in this life, then certainly in the next. Today, as we face pressures from society, feelings of inadequacy, and worries about our status, Julaibib's story offers hope and guidance. It teaches us that our real value lies not in what others think of us, but in our relationship with Allah. It encourages us to focus on strengthening our faith, developing our character, and serving Allah and His creation, rather than chasing worldly recognition. The young woman who chose to marry Julaibib also provides a timeless example. In a world where decisions are often driven by material gain, social pressure, or appearances, her choice to trust Allah's wisdom and the guidance of the Prophet stands as a beacon of true Islamic thinking. She shows us that when we align our choices with faith, rather than the fleeting values of society, Allah blesses us with happiness and success beyond worldly measure. Perhaps the most profound lesson from Julaibib's life is this: every person we meet may be beloved to Allah in ways we cannot perceive. The colleague we ignore, the neighbor we overlook, the family member we take for granted, any of them could be among those whom heaven itself longs for when they are absent. This teaches us to treat everyone with kindness, respect, and consideration, remembering that Allah's judgment is far greater than human judgment. As we reflect on this beautiful story, we are left with questions to ponder. How do we measure success and worth in our own lives? Do we value what Allah values, or do we chase the temporary attractions of this world? When choosing spouses, friends, and companions, do we prioritize character and faith, or are we swayed by appearances and social expectations? How can we cultivate the sincere faith and dedication that made Julaibib so beloved to Allah? The answers lie in following the example of the Prophet, who saw value where others saw worthlessness, honored the humble, and lifted up the overlooked. They lie in remembering that this life is temporary, while our actions and intentions have eternal consequences. True success means earning Allah's pleasure, regardless of worldly recognition. May Allah grant us the wisdom to see with the eyes of faith rather than the eyes of society. May He bless us with courage to make choices based on His guidance rather than social pressure. May He help us develop sincere faith and pure character qualities that make a person beloved in heaven. And may He grant us the honor of being among those whom heaven misses when we are absent. All of this we learn from the beautiful example of Julaibib. May Allah be pleased with him, the humble man who became beloved to Allah, and whose absence caused even the angels of heaven to long for him.